That's fine. Well, I can definitely give you a good introduction here today. So,
That's nice. I really appreciate that.
okay, that's not a problem. So we'll give Rocky a few more minutes. But I think I'll give you a little bit of my background because, I grew up, I was born in 1957, so I'm almost 60 years old. And I've never really had anyone to tell me or, mentor me on how to actually invest. I've had a few opportunities, but I didn't know what questions to ask. So that's one of the issues that now I have to almost teach myself or find people who will, kind of teach me. But one of the things that I've been able to do over the past 5 years is take a lot of classes. And what I'm finding is that a lot of the people who want to teach you how to invest are really teaching you how to trade. So watching the charts go up and down,
Right.
prices, and the dynamics and all of that. And not knowing anything better, that's really what I thought you needed to do in order to be able to invest. But now I'm completely turned around and I'm thinking of it more from a fundamental standpoint. Is this a good company? Do they have good growth rates? Do they have good management? And it's called a moat, or what's their
Uh,
competitive
yeah,
advantage?
I'm familiar with Phil Town, so he's
Okay.
teaching that too.
Okay. So it's doing a lot of that. And now I've been reading a number of books by Warren Buffett and Ben Graham, and just now coming at this completely differently. So when I was trading, what I basically determined was that I really didn't want to be watching the computer screen hour after hour, day after day. And I mean, some people love to do that, but you really have no idea, for the most part, what the stocks are going to do minute to minute, day to day. And somebody from Europe could say one thing, and that would impact markets in Japan, which would then impact markets. Warren Buffett says that's too hard. And I just can't keep track of everything and how this person thinks about that person and how it might impact this market tomorrow or next week or next month. So
Right.
let's just kind of keep that. It's too hard. But I know companies that I really love. And being an engineer, I very much love companies that are into technology.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So now I'm looking at it more. I'm now investing in companies that I love, but I'm not overly diversifying. So right now, and I'll show you this in a little bit, but right now I'm invested in Apple. I'm invested in Tesla. I'm invested in NVIDIA and Twitter. And
What was the last before Twitter?
NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a company that creates graphic processing chips
Oh,
used in video games, and it's NIVDIA. And they're basically a company that have been around for many years, but primarily in the gaming industry. In the gaming industry, there's a lot of graphic processing to come up with images that look realistic. But now that same graphic processing technology is now being used for autonomous cars, self-driving cars, artificial intelligence. So now their markets are opening up tremendously. And over the last year, they've actually grown probably in the neighborhood of 220, 240%. So if you had invested $5,000, you would literally now be looking at $15,000. So those are the kind of growth rates that get me interested. But it just happens to be with a company that I've been following for 10 years. So now I'm able to take a company that I know, take a company with products that I know, and now I can begin trading that company. And there's two different types of trading that I'm looking at. And one is you can trade like Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett basically is an amazing investor, and he invests in many, many different things. However, his mentality is, I want to be able to keep compounding what I've earned over and over and over and over again. And ultimately, you're going to end up with a lot of money. Maybe it's for us millions of dollars. For him, it became billions. But basically, he had very little, if any, drawdowns over that period of time. And the drawdowns being just taking money out. So if you take money out and spend it, that's obviously money that you can't continue to invest over and over again. So there was actually a great story I had heard, probably at Phil Town's seminar, about Warren Buffett being in an elevator. And basically, he was standing in the elevator with two or three guys, and he saw a penny on the floor. Did you? I don't know if you heard this story or not, Dagmar, but so he saw a penny on the floor. Hi, Raki. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom. Good morning.
Good morning. We have Dagmar here.
Hi, Rocky. Good morning.
Yeah, Amir can't join us, but he's going to listen to the recording. So I was just relaying a story to Dagmar about a story I heard about Warren Buffett.
Yes.
How he constantly compounds everything, and he spends very little compared to what he's actually making.
Yes.
And that story is about Warren Buffett being in an elevator with two or three gentlemen, and he spotted a penny on the floor. And then the two people in the elevator noticed that he noticed the penny on the floor, and they looked back at each other, and nobody said anything. But when the doors opened, Warren Buffett bent over and picked up the penny, and he held it in his hand. He said, "This is the start of my next billion."
Wow.
So,
so awesome.
It's just, it's just one of those stories that it kind of puts it into perspective that my big lesson over the last 5 years has been time is your friend, but if you do things with trading, time can be your enemy. So I would much rather have time be my friend than my enemy. And time is now my friend because I'm investing and not trading. You can have things change minute to minute when you're trading and you're watching charts and trying to predict, and everything is almost out of your control. So one of the things that I'm now focusing on is to invest in good companies, companies that have a great growth rate over the last, sorry, Zoom is telling me that I need to do something here. So anyway, regardless, so now I'm investing in good companies that have good growth rates for the last 5 or 10 years. And with that history, it's going to be predicted that they're going to continue to have good growth rates into the future. Now, it's not a company that I'm going to stay, quote unquote, married to for the next 40 or 50 years, because if you look at the stock market over the last 100 years, there are whatever, 1,500 companies. And over that 100 years, there's only like 10 or 12% of them that still exist today. So you really need to kind of invest for the long term, but you want to really keep an eye on things every 6 months, every year, if you're investing for your retirement. So that's kind of the one thing that I'm investing in now. That's the big difference. The second way is I don't want to live like Warren Buffett, where I'm just creating a bigger pile of cash. Yeah. I want to enjoy the money in my investments in the near term. So, and I see you both nodding your head. So that kind of, I guess we're all alike in that sense. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to, retire or be at the foot of your grave with this huge pile of money and you weren't able to enjoy it. So the focus needs to be on retirement, because you really want to end up with, when you're 60 or 65 years old, you want to end up with a big pot of money that you can continue to invest, but then your investments are what you live on. You don't live off of the principal. Mm-hmm. So that number needs to be kind of in the neighborhood of $1 to $5 or more million. And it sounds like an unreachable goal, but that's really what you're going to need, because now all I need is a 10% return on $1 million. And now I have $100,000 that I can live off of. And maybe my house is paid for, my expenses have been reduced, that type of thing. So you don't need a lot, but you don't need a huge return on whatever your principal is to actually enjoy your retirement and not worry about, is Social Security going to be around or any of this other stuff. So that's kind of the goal. But some of the things that I've learned that have been very painful in my life is that I never really knew how to invest. So my parents were both blue collar workers. They worked at a company that basically provided a pension. So their company basically invested for them. And when they retired, they ended up getting a pension, which turned out to be 80% of whatever their last salary was. And they were set for their retirement. Well, now pensions don't exist anymore. And we need to kind of take care of things in our own matter. And what the government basically came up with their 401k plans. Dagmar, I'm not sure what's available in Germany, but it may be similar. Not really quite sure. But I mean, with the 401k plans, you basically take money out and it's all, kind of pre-tax. But now you've got a bigger amount of money that are essentially in there. And you can invest it in different funds, but those funds are now managed by people that don't believe that price and value are the same. They believe it's the same, but the price and the value of your company are actually quite different based on what the market is doing. So let's see, where am I going with this? So the important thing is that now our choices are basically to put money into a 401k plan and have it invested in funds where the fund managers now take 1 or 2% of your investment and charge that as a fee. And if you took that 1 or 2% and compounded it over 30 or 40 years that you're going to basically retire, you're going to end up giving away 50 to 60% of your ultimate portfolio. So that alone is just, that's just crazy. So the important thing is to really recognize the power of compounding your money over time, so that now, that 10% gain, you can now invest that 10% and do that again and again and again and again. And that's one of the things that, relative to retirement, is one of the things you want to focus on, compounding. So the more you can do that, the more you're going to have. And the idea with the retirement account is that you don't touch it. You'd love to be able to buy a company that's going to be around for 50 years, that's growing at 10% a year. You're going to end up with millions with a very minimal upfront investment. But now it's the compounding that really brings the big returns in for you. So the second part, which is what we're all in agreement on, is how do we actually get some cash flow? Okay. So one of the things that I've done recently, and has turned out to be fairly successful, is that you really want to get a small amount of money. And for me, it just happened to be $10,000. So I put that into a completely different account, but it could be 5,000, it could be 1,000. But every time I made 10% on that money, so in this case, $11,000, I would actually sell a certain number of shares to actually pull that $1,000 out of the market. So if you think about it, everyone knows about the rainbow, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So think about whatever money you can put aside in cash as the money that you're going to use to fill up a little pot at the end of your rainbow. And now every time your stock goes up by 10%, I want you to sell whatever shares it takes to get out that 10%. So it might be 3 or 4 shares, it might be 10 shares, depending upon the value of the stock that you've done. And then every time you take out that 10%, think of it as coins flowing out of your bucket onto the floor that you can then put aside and save, or you can spend. Maybe it's a dinner out, maybe it's a pizza, I don't know. But maybe it's a trip to Paris like we ended up doing. I mean, I can't tell you how freeing it was to go to Paris with everything prepaid and including whatever spending money we needed. And we just thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, as opposed to, oh, we can't do that, I can't afford that. I mean, it was just so freeing to be able to do that. And then coincidentally, while we were there, we ended up making another 10%. So I sold 5 more shares. So, you kind of see how this works. And then, so for instance, let's say it went up to 11,000. I sold 1,000. Now I'm back to my original 10. I still have 11,000, but now I've locked in a gain of 10%. So if you can imagine the stock market's going up and down, if you can just get 10% every month, then and just pick up the ups and downs of the market, then after doing that every month of the year, you've now taken your pot of gold and literally doubled it. Okay. So now instead of 1,000, you've got 2,000. Instead of 5, you've got 10, etc. So now you can actually pick the ups and downs of the market to actually pick the best times to sort of let those gold coins fall out of your pot of gold. So that's the cash flow part of it. And the idea would be to always take money off the table when you've got a winner, but don't keep pouring it back in, because some of my earlier days as a trader, I would literally see my stock go up by 200%. And then I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to let it keep going. And then before you know it, the term everyone uses is the stock market takes the stairs up, very slow growth up, but then it takes the elevator down. So it could be down in a day, and I'd see my 200% gain drop down to 50%. What I should have been doing is taking gains all along. So let's say I bought 100 shares, and after it went up by 10%, and I sold 5. So now I've got 95 shares still available. And so now I can still have that to play with. So if it keeps going up, I'm still in 95%, not 100%. But if it goes down, I'm only, I'm not dropping as quickly. So there's a number of things, and there's a lot more details I can get into, but those are the two sort of mindsets that you're going to need in order to be able to invest for the long term and then invest for the short term for cash flow. And I can't tell you how confident I am in what I'm doing right now compared to my first 4.5 years of trading the markets and trading charts and curves. Now, I will say that I'm a much better investor because of the way I traded those first 4 years. So now I've got different ways that I look at the charts where I can actually